The great men of old, the giants of yore who lived hundreds of years, enjoyed the best sights and environment the world could give. That was a time when the earth abounded in food and watered gardens. The story of old is herein foretold by one who saw it all. I journeyed to the east, in the mountains of Ararat, where Noah and his sons lived, to meet and have a discussion with Noah and Shem. I planned to learn from them about what they saw before the flood, that I may pass it on to younger generations. Dear Abram, sit down and listen to the mystery of the ages, and know what humanity has lost as a result of the sins of Adam, Cain, and the pre-flood world. I saw everything, including the beauty of the world before the flood. I saw the flood and survived it, and I saw how man has been scattered with different languages at Shinar following the rebellion of Nimrod. The only thing I did not see was the creation itself and Adam and Eve. However, their accounts were told to me by my grandfathers, Methuselah and Lamech. Enoch was translated to heaven by the time I was born. I saw the Garden of Eden, and all of us who feared God gathered at the cherubim-guarded gate of the garden each Sabbath to worship God. It was at the entrance of this garden that Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, and later Seth and all his descendants gathered to worship God weekly. Here, the glory of God was revealed to us, and we saw the guarding angels who prevented any human from entering the garden. From the entrance of the garden we saw the two fruits, the tree of life and the forbidden tree of knowledge of good and evil. The Garden of Eden was removed during the flood, and we do not have it anymore as evidence of our initial home and our fall from grace. As to the beauty of the garden, let us talk about that later, for words will not allow me to describe it. It is best seen than heard of. The beauty of Eden was beyond description. There was no rain on the earth during those days. From Eden, a river flowed forth and watered the garden, separating into 4 rivers, Pishon, Gihon, Euphrates, and Hiddekel. We only gathered outside it to worship, and saw what was inside, but could not enter it. Adam and Eve were the perfection of beauty, I was told, made in the express image of God, and perfectly resembling angels in height, glory, and beauty. Before their sin, they were covered with light, just as the angels. Hence they did not need material clothes, for their light was their covering. Remember that God himself is also covered in light. Their eyes could also see at night, because light emitted from their eyes and fell on whatever they wanted to see. They were instructed in all the wisdom and science of the material world. They communicated with each other not only through words from their mouth, but also through the light from their eyes. By beholding each other and emitting lights from their eyes, they exchanged information. They used their eyes to learn the secrets of nature. By touching any leaf or plant or substance, the light from their eyes gathered information about its secrets and mechanisms, and it became clear to them how that creature worked. They were the best scientists and knew everything about nature. After the fall of Adam and Eve, they were sent away from the garden to work the ground, something they had never done before. Angels and a flaming sword were sent to keep us from the garden and the tree of life forever. We did not inherit that from them. We lost it after the fall, just as they. Such a great loss. I was told that the weather did not vary before the fall. It was constant and just right. We only had periods of cold and heat afterwards. Indeed, after the fall we never saw rain, for the dew came from the soil while we slept and watered the earth. The sky was not constantly blue like this before the flood. It changed colour each day. So by looking at the sky you could tell which day it was. There was no rain in those days before the flood, and the atmosphere changed daily into different colours. Adam and Eve communicated with each other by voice and sight. Their eyes lighted at night to provide light. They were covered by light until they sinned and lost everything. Abram, we lost so much. And this is just a tip of the iceberg. The beauty and riches of the world before the flood are difficult to describe. Men's years were counted in the hundreds. They were giants who married around 100 years and had no need for books. We had everything we needed, that we hardly worked. People had so much to eat and little to do. Men were so idle that they spent their time in drinking, eating, building, marrying, killing, fornicating, and committing all kinds of immorality. The earth, even after the fall of Adam and Eve, which I saw before the flood, was not as rugged and exposed as it is now. There were no high, rugged mountains nor an exposed bare soil. Everything was covered with grass and trees. There were gentle, sloping hills, but no high, steep mountains. In between these beautiful plains and gentle rolling hills were sparkling rivers and lakes, which were not muddied or dirtied because there was no exposed earth to generate dust or mud. And remember, there was no rain to cause muds or floods as well. There were no deserts, no dust, no islands, and the earth was not separated into fragmented continents. Every place was covered with greens. Indeed, this is so because God separated the waters from the dried earth during creation. Hence, all the earth was a single landmass surrounded by a single sea or ocean instead of different oceans or seas. We could therefore roam the whole earth without crossing any sea. Eden was the perfection of beauty. From it came forth the river that divided into four: Pishon, Gihon, Hiddekel, and Euphrates. Outside the garden, the earth was equally beautiful and well-watered. It was full of food that people hardly worked for food. All of us humans and even animals ate plants before the flood. It was only Cain and his descendants who occasionally killed and ate animals. After Cain killed Abel, he settled in the east of Eden in a land called Nod. There he built a city called Enoch and raised an army of evil men and women who committed all sorts of crimes and immorality. They were a vicious and aggressive race who lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden, in a city called Enoch. Besides the city of Enoch in Nod, where people could be murdered or attacked by criminals, everywhere was peaceful and safe. This is because animals were eating plants and not harming humans, and we humans were not harming animals either. The people who lived before the flood were giants. They were strong and lived for almost 1,000 years. They did not forget things because their brains were expanding for centuries, and they could consult Adam or other aged people for ideas. They did not need books or the art of writing because they lived to see their grandfather to the 9th generation. So why write when the source of knowledge is living among you? Knowledge was therefore circulated orally from generation to generation. The animals and trees were different from those that now exist. The trees were as strong as iron and taller than those that we currently see. There were the strong and gigantic dinosaurs, mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, flying unicorns and so on that are no more in existence. Indeed, the pre-flood animals were stronger and taller than those that are currently alive. Everything has reduced in size after the flood, yet they all ate plants. We did not struggle for food before the flood. Although food was easier to get in the Garden of Eden and outside it, we are comparatively worse off now after the flood. The earth was rich, fertile and abundant with fruits, vegetables, cereals, nuts and so on, that we did not suffer to get food to eat. There were so many varieties of food, plants and animals that the eye was never tired of seeing them. Neither did we tire of tasting the various foods that are now non-existent. We cooked less and often ate raw fruits, vegetables and cereals because they were so sweet and nutritious. The most beautiful places of the earth today cannot compare to the earth before the flood. The trees were different. There were more diversity in food. The soil was so rich and productive even though it did not rain. It was just a little paradise on earth. The abundance of food, water, and everything we needed to sustain life made people so idle and inclined to sin and immorality. Sin quickly spread around the world until it affected the whole world. The earth is cursed now because of Adam, Cain, and later, the flood. Cain went to live in Nod, where he became the father of evil. Adam, Eve, Seth, and their descendants lived around the Garden of Eden and worshipped God faithfully. These were the sons of God. As we both increased in population, we got closer to each other, and we, the sons and worshippers of God, became attracted to and married the descendants of Cain. Thus we became corrupted by the descendants of Cain, and the wrath of God was poured on the earth in a flood. Let's break for another Sabbath, Abram. Sin has destroyed the earth and humanity. I will tell you more tomorrow.